asbestos and things like that, which actually paid for that evaluation. We sought grants, we sought loans for the property owner, but because it was privately owned, it was not eligible for those next opportunities. So we looked at every avenue, and unfortunately we are where we are.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Lamb, Mr. Assorti? All right, with none offered. Those in favor of authorizing the township attorney to initiate legal action in circuit court to seek authorization to demolish the dangerous buildings on the aforementioned parcel and to assess the cost as a lien on the property and presumably eventually on the individual, depending on the court decision, please signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? None offered? Some progress on this issue. Thanks.
Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Clerk.
I move to deny a request from Mr. Steve Milge, 9150 Rucker Road, for a partial refund of $124.31. Note that the total charges were $157.85, resulting from an appeal filed on September 23rd, 2013, surrounding his Freedom of Information Act request filed on August 7th, 2013.
Support. I'll second it.
Thank you. So just a little history on why this is here, and that's because it's this is not traditionally an appeal to a FOIA. The traditional appeal to a FOIA is, hey, you didn't give me enough information, or you didn't give me what I asked for, or you redacted so much of what you gave me that it's useless to me. That type of thing needs to be provided for in state law, and the appeal process is at the Township Board. This request was actually for a refund after the individual had picked up the documents and had been notified about what the documents were going to be, and then had them at home for several days, and then decided he wanted to have a refund on what he had requested to get. So I don't see any anything in this document or anything in his request that was answered untruthfully or was not answered in full. The payments per hour, everything is itemized out, as well as the individual was given the information, what he was requesting and how much this was going to cost in advance of him even coming to the office to pick it up. This happens occasionally. Sometimes people request stuff and never pay for it. Sometimes they pay for it right away. But typically, once they leave the township hall, and certainly several days later, then they want a request for documents that they've already had in their hands is something I really don't necessarily support. So again, it's in front of us because really the only due process called for is in front of this board. So there was not an administrative way of handling this request. It comes back to this board.
I spent a good portion this afternoon reading the request, reading through the documents provided. I think there was reading specifically how it was requested. I think there was a good faith effort made to fulfill that. I don't see the reason for the complaint. He obviously he didn't get what he expected, but he got what we had. And again, what I saw complied with the specific wording in his request. This township staff is very accommodating in terms of providing people with information. If we have the document immediately available, generally they just make a copy and hand it to you. If there's a lot of research involved, then of course with our staff is so limited, if we have to take a staff member off his or her regular job to research, it hurts the rest of the operation. Of course, we have to charge for it, and we just follow the letter of the law on that. So everyone, I think, did their job properly. Again, he got what he asked for. He just apparently didn't get what he expected to get, but he can come back if he needs more. We'll try to find more through the same process. Other comments?
Mr. Supervisor, I fully agree with what you're saying, and I think that is the problem here. It isn't what he expected, but certainly I spent a few hours today going over this as you did, and from everything I can see, and from talking to the people involved, we gave him everything that we had that he wanted. It just was one of those things where he was expecting something else, and it wasn't in the form or the shape that he wanted it.
So, just a little bit of background, it concerns drainage from the Rucker Road area, the area that was flooded with the Fox 2. People were out basically slandering the community. Still a little upset about that. But he had requested drainage diagrams and drainage information, and we gave him what we had, keeping in mind that we inherited a lot of existing drainage systems from the Navy, and we just don't have full documentation on it. We're learning more and more as part of our ongoing process to understand all of it, to make it work better. We're not there yet. Getting there, we're learning more all the time. But he got what we had. Mr. Treasurer, who knows as much about this as anybody, is Mr. Van Honsen.
Well, it doesn't go to bed here. The Township DPS Commission has presented to the commission and approved to come forward to the board that we're going to do a complete investigation of that drainage system over there. We're going to try to see if we can alleviate any of the problems we have. That area is just a nightmare over there because it drains all of that open space from an old abandoned Wayne, what was actually at one time a Wayne County drain, which, like everything else, they've decided they're not going to maintain those or don't have the funds to maintain them. But we are looking into if something that we can do on the airport property or by the township property can alleviate that condition. We'll do all in our power to try to correct or at least help. I don't think we'll ever correct it because it's a very bad situation over there. But we had 12.5 inches of rain that month, the most in 100 years, the most in recorded history. And consequently, some of the residents on the Rucker Road end suffered some major water problems in their backyards, going out the front yards. But the township's moving forward. We're going to try to investigate it, see if there's anything we can do to alleviate that. It doesn't die here, but I think that all the information that was requested by this gentleman was that we had and was given to him, and that's all we can do. And when you file a FOIA request, our obligation is to give you what we have, and we did that. So.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Other comments? Okay, the motion was worded to deny the request, so that's how I will pose the vote. Those in favor of denying the request from Mr. Steve Mills for a partial refund of $124.31 out of a total charge of $157.85 surrounding his Freedom of Information Act request filed on August 7th, 2013. Those in favor of denying the request, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Has to be a roll call, doesn't it? No? No, I don't think so.
I'll make it a roll call if you like, Mr. Posiask.
Not required, but we can do it.
It's not required, it's just a way. It's printed as requiring it.
Those opposed? None offered, motion carries. Mr. Malvesto.
Mr. Supervisor, excuse me.
Thank you. Mr. Supervisor, the proposed action is to authorize Chief Burdock to spend not more than $50,000 to purchase a replacement engine for the Grosville Fire and Rescue Department's water rescue vessel, commonly referred to as the airboat.
Support.
Okay, moved by Trustee Malvesto and seconded by Trustee Bundy. And to fill us in on, Chief Burdock.
Just a little background, just to let the board know that Grosville Fire Department is the only water rescue team between Belle Isle and Group Toledo. So during the winter months when we have heavy ice, there's great opportunity with low ceilings that the aircraft don't get out. So then we have even a longer wait when it comes to the Coast Guard getting down this area. We do have a fisherman and duck hunting problem
with fishermen and duck hunters getting on those ice floes and going floating down the river. Have we ever rescued Grosseal residents? Yes. Have we rescued Grosseal residents down in Point Moulet because they're down there duck hunting? Yes. Have we rescued Brownstown? Yes. Trenton? Yes. So it's kind of it's a multitask vehicle. What has occurred over the last 7 years during the purchase of this boat? And just some background, we paid $160,000 for this boat 7 years ago. To replace this boat's almost $300,000 at its current price. I checked on that today. The original motor was a custom-built drag motor. I had a hot rod specialist come out. These motors have inherent problems. They constantly got to be tuned, constantly got to be rebuilt. We threw a rod last year that we had to have rebuilt. It runs at a high rate of RPMs, and the hot rod guy says at this point in time the motor is reached the end of its life. So that being said, I got back with the manufacturer and said, what can we do to improve upon this? Well, they're now using a new GM crate motor. It's an aluminum block. It is a Corvette motor. It's aluminum. It's about 400 pounds lighter, which actually adds some value to us when it comes to putting another person in the boat. But it lightened up the boat, and it's giving us more reliability in the sense that we can service this motor a lot easier based on the fact that it's a GM product. I can go up to the Chevy dealership and buy parts and fuel filters and all these necessary parts to fix the motor. Presently, I got to buy out of the Midwest from a race company that's got all these parts involved called Summit Racing. The boat, we have spent some service money on it over the last 7 years. When we blew the rod, it cost us about $2,000 to fix it. So there's been a lot of, every time it goes out, we got to put plugs in it. We got to change the oil. It's become a constant maintenance problem. And we've had a couple failures out in Point Moulet where we've gone out, did an effective rescue, but then the boat quit running on us. And it's very temperamental. So talking with the manufacturer, they've alleviated that problem with this new crate motor and the new fuel injection system and the new, the whole updated whatever goes on with motors. And but that's where we're at with it. The price came in at $48,000 with me taking the boat down stripped with the motor because we want to sell parts off. The motor has some value when it comes to parts. The headers, the manifold intake, so those still have some value. The rest of the motor, the fuel system, all that stuff is junk. It's outdated, nobody's using it, it's antiquated. And then they're going to bring the boat back, if you agree to this, and do sea trials with it to make sure the boat is operational. Unlike the last motor, we had a 90-day warranty on the motor because it was a custom-built drag motor. This motor, we have a year. So we get a little more time out of it. But right now, the guys are not what they call comfortable with taking this boat on a 10 below 0 day and the snow's blowing and being out in the water and this thing break down. Then we have a difficult problem getting it back in. So that's kind of where we're at right now with it.
Okay, thanks, Chief. Questions, comments?
I just have, what's the time frame here?
If Kim Richardson gets it all broke down for us and he's already looked at it, I'll probably get out of here tomorrow night, get the boat down to Kansas. It's out of the Midwest. And then we're looking at about 6 weeks, and that's probably right about the time the ice flow problem is going to take place.
Okay. Mr. Bunny.
Chief, I'm going to follow up on the question, that Woody had. Why do we need a boat? I mean, other than us wanting it and being...
It's not a case of want. It's a case of, it's an added value to the community in the fact that we're surrounded by water.
But is there any requirement that we do water rescue?
No.
Okay.
There's no requirement we even have to have a fire department.
No, don't go over what I'm asking.
No,
don't
requirement.
try and amplify it. Do we need?
No.
We don't have. There's no requirement
No.
that we need a boat. We have it because for obvious reasons.
Yes.
Okay.
Earlier today, you talked about the timeline on this, and if you got it down right away, you got moved to the head of the line on the replacement engine. If you weren't there in the next 3 weeks, you were going to get the end of the line, and
Yeah, he's got a bunch of boats coming through for the federal government.
Because there was a question why there's an emergency ad, and I just wanted to let the the board members know that there are time constraints. You want to get moving on this as quickly as possible.
I think I explained this to the supervisor, and I think I explained it to you, Mr. Bundy, was the fact that I held off, because the question is why didn't I take care of this 3 months ago or 4 months ago? Because we knew we were going into this problem. Is we were in the process of finishing up a build on a fire truck, and I wanted to make sure that all my finances were in place before I actually committed to making that expenditure, which is a substantial expenditure. $48,000 is a lot of money. But at the end of the day, we're also using enterprise money. We're using funds from the ambulance fund. We're not using tax dollars. So because that fund replenishes itself quite quickly. That's the reason I'm going that route. And it's an ambulance for all practical purposes, so it makes sense to take it out of that fund.
Any other questions, comments from the board? We could go on for hours, I guess, on the mentality.
And I
of
understand
rescue
Mr. Bundy's, comment. It's passionate for the men on the fire department when it comes to water and water rescue, because we all live it, we've all grew up on it, and it's a way of life for us. So, and I apologize if I stepped out of line, but at the end of the day, it's something that the fire department's very passionate about, and it's a big part of what we do downriver, is water rescue.
If we don't do it, who's going to?
And it's all tied together. It's the Downriver Dive Team, which the Groseal Fire Department operates and runs, the Downriver Dive Team, along with our ice water rescue, along with our airboat. So there's a big picture there that we're dealing with. So, and that's how it all works.
Okay, other questions, comments for the chief? If none are offered, then those in favor of authorizing Chief Murdock to spend not more than $50,000 to purchase a replacement engine for the Groseal Fire and Rescue Department's airboat, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None offered? Action's approved. Thanks, Chief. That will complete our action items. We will step to the clerk's report. Clerk Rankin.
Mr. Supervisor, so for those of you who don't remember, we've got an election coming up here in a couple weeks. First Tuesday in the month, it's going to be basically a local election. So I wanted to give some information on absentee ballots. So I'm just going to read a couple of things here very quickly. So for the absentee ballots, voters who meet the following criteria may request an absentee ballot application by phone, email, or in person. If you're 60 years or older, if you expect to be absent from the community for the entire time the polls are open, if you're physically unable to attend the polls without assistance, if you cannot attend the polls because of a tenets of a religion, or if you've been appointed as an election precinct inspector at a precinct other than where they reside, and if you are unable to attend the polls due to confinement to jail, awaiting arraignment, or trial. There may also be printed, this also may be printed from the Groseal /clerk's webpage or Michigan.gov/SOS-elections. 2, Michigan law now makes it mandatory for absentee voters to show valid picture identification when picking up their absentee ballots in person. Voters must pick up their own ballot. The law prevents delivery of a ballot to anyone except the person who it has been assigned to, so it seems like you should be able to pick up for your spouse, but that's not the case. A limited number of sample ballots are available at the clerk's office. A sample ballot is also available for viewing on the Groseal.com website by clicking on the sample ballot link on the homepage. Election day is Tuesday, November 5th. Voting locations are open at 7 a.m. and close at 8 p.m. The deadline to request an absentee ballot by mail is Saturday, November 2nd at 2 p.m. The clerk's office will be open on Saturday, November 2nd from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. Voters may obtain and vote their absentee ballot on Monday, November 4th in the clerk's office until 4 p.m. Ballots may not be taken out of the office on this day. Absentee ballots must be returned to the clerk's office by 8 p.m. on Election Day in order to be counted. The absentee ballot counting board meets on Election Day to begin counting all returned voted ballots. Votes will be tabulated and reported as soon as possible after the polls close. Voters going to their voting precinct on Election Day are required by Michigan election law, MCL 168.523, to present valid photo identification in order to receive a ballot. Those registered voters whose names appear on the precinct voter list, but who are unable to provide a photo identification in the non-federal election are allowed to sign an affidavit of identity in order to receive a ballot. Voters without identification who refuse to sign the affidavit of identity will not receive a ballot. So bottom line is bring your photo ID to the ballot office or get an absentee ballot if you're able to do so. So that's it regarding the election for now. I do have some interesting news from the police department. So the police department is getting close to recognizing its 100-year celebration, 100-year anniversary. And in commemoration of this, they have put together a documentary that basically mirrors the growth of the police department since 1914 with the growth of Groseal since 1914. And so it's very, very interesting and fun facts with this documentary. And along with the documentary, there are some short films about what's going on in the police department today. So these will begin airing, I believe, on October the 22nd on local GITV. From a planning commission standpoint, I think it was brought up at a previous meeting here at the board level of what ordinances does the planning commission work on if there's, just out of the blue, where do you start? So in the packets is basically a list of potential zoning ordinance amendments. These come from a number of things. They come from our master plan. They come from issues that the ZBA is having, or they come from clarification issues that the building department is having, and really we want to make things clear for people who need to use the ordinances. So the list is here. We could work on ordinances 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and still never be to the top of it. However, there is a budget to work through, so we prioritize it each year what the priorities will be. And then just as a note, budgeted $5,000 to work on ordinances this year, and through the date, we're through about $2,200. So there is $2,800 remaining in the fiscal year budget from an ordinance standpoint. So really just background as far as what the priorities are. Certainly the Planning Commission would take any feedback on these as well if you wanted to move the priorities. And that's it from the clerk's office.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ranka. We'll step to Treasurer Van Osten.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. The investment report for the month of August shows $13,396,721 invested in various accounts. These accounts generated a total of $924.66 in interest. Wow, it's amazing.
Wow.
With an average interest rate of 0.17%. Reason for that, obviously, is the fact that we can only do short-term investments. And since the change in the economy, our funds going into various banks have become a burden to these banks because they can't loan it back out. So consequently, with a 90-day cap on this by law, we get the absolute minimum. I anticipate at some point in time, with the way things are going, they might be charging us to hold our money. The 2013 summer tax bill are now past due. We'll continue to collect late summer tax payments with a penalty of 1% per calendar month. Late payments cannot be taken at the local banks and credit unions. Please call or stop at the office for penalty amounts or inquire online at groseal.com. The Township's Treasurer's Office is also responsible for collecting delinquent personal property tax. Personal visits are being made to the Groseal businesses that have not yet paid their taxes for 2013 to encourage payment. We only have one option for personal property tax from a treasurer's standpoint, and that's to seize and sell property. And obviously, that's the last thing we want to do to a business that's functioning on Groseal. Again, our new employee, Carrie Lockwood, is doing a great job. I have a complete investment list. If anybody wants it, stop at my office, see myself or Annette. We'll give you a copy. It shows you where all our dollars are at, what banks are in, and in what amounts. The Commerce Park Commission meets next Monday, I believe. I believe it is next Monday. You're encouraged to attend. We've got some things going on that we're pretty excited about. We may have a tenant for the old Iverson building, which would be a big asset, because the longer these buildings sit empty, the more of a burden they come on our community. Other than that, I have nothing else.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Move on to trustee reports. Mr. Modesto.
I don't have anything this evening, Mr. Supervisor. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, sir. Mrs. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just wanted to give everybody kind of a little bit of an update on website progress. The department heads have been notified and asked for updated information for their respective pages. I know that Kathy Walker, the commission chair, has been working diligently on coordinating this and has sent out email reminders. So the sooner, just remind all the department heads who are here, the sooner you get that information to Kathy, the sooner we can move forward. And Dale, I'm going to count on you to beat the drum. Additionally, if anybody out there has any really good photos of Grozeal, we would love to use those on the new site if possible. You would just have to send them electronically in JPEG format to Ted Fournier, and his email address is tedf@grozeal.com. We definitely want to showcase the beauty of Grozeal during all the seasons, so anything would be appreciated, and the more the better. Next commission meetings for myself are Communications Commission on November 6th at 7 p.m. and the Festival Commission on October 16th, this Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. And lastly, there are still several openings existing on these commissions, so if anybody is interested or qualified or have a desire to serve, please fill out an application at the Township. And that's it.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. We'll move to Mr. Posiask.
Anyone want to run out for a sandwich or something right now? This is going to be a little lengthy. I've had the privilege of serving on two really interesting committees, the Bike Path Committee and the Greenways Open Space Committee, and have sat through very many discussions with the members of both of those committees regarding protecting their various charges. The Bike Path Committee is very interested in making sure that all of the work that we put to the creation of new bike paths and the maintenance and upkeep of the existing paths is adequately protected. And going to the Greenways and Open Space Committee, they have similar intentions and similar motives. And I've had a personal sole opinion, but I think everyone will agree with me that they do have a lot in common. They all have paths. Some of them are soft paths and some of them are hard paths. We've had a recent addition to the Greenways Open Space Committee, and that recent addition happens to be also a member of the Grozeal Nature and Land Conservancy. And this is the third group of protecting assets, or exterior or outside assets, that has some commonality with the first two groups. They also have a great desire to make sure that the lands that they either own or steward are maintained in a good state and not degraded by actions of others. Grozeal Nature and Land Conservancy, I'm not a member of, but I did spend some time with reading and studying and trying to understanding. They're non-political. They're not going to be the commission or committee that's going to interact directly with the first two committees. But I realize that the efforts of our two committees are going to have some impact tangentially on what's going to happen around Grozeal Nature and Land Conservancy properties. I've had the Bike Path Committee and the Open Space Committee had one joint session already, and I can see another one coming, and perhaps with Bert Urbani from the Nature and Land Conservancy as a representative, or perhaps with parts of their staff, we might wind up to have a larger summit meeting, if you will. And what this document was supposed to do for you on the board, and for Mr. Pollock and for Mr. St. Pierre, was to make them understand, to make us all able to understand the need for becoming consistent with our ordinances. All of us want to put in rules and regulations that protect their own little castle, but sometimes our castle, our actions towards our castle will affect somebody else's castle. So what I'm telling you as a bottom line for this document is that we invite your input, and we also would like to let the board know that there will be additional input coming from both of the commissions that I happen to sit on, and I'm sure Groseal Nature and Land Conservancy will give opinion on what we're doing and make sure that we're all marching in step. And that's the bottom line of the entire first discussion item. If you have any questions for me, you're free to ask them now. Oh, I did a good job writing it, I guess.
Well, normally we don't do questions and answers during trustee report, but do we just do half the discussion items?
It's your prerogative, Mr. Supervisor. I can handle these on an individual basis, and quite frankly, as we have these two committees meeting on a monthly basis, you're invited to the meetings. Everybody is.
Let's move on to close out the business meeting and then step into discussion items and open up for questions then.
That would be fine.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Budney?
I'll be very quick. We have a ZBA meeting appeal next Tuesday, the 22nd. And as always, I encourage all the people here and the people out there to attend these meetings, any commission meeting, and certainly the board meetings. And I thank the people that are in the audience today and those out that are watching on TV for looking in.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Budney. Okay, we've got a few odds and ends, what's going on the island. First, mostly good stuff. In the next couple of weeks, Westcroft Gardens, 13th Annual Phantom Forest Hayrides each weekend through October 27th. You can contact Westcroft Gardens, 676-2444. Westcroft Gardens is an historic site. It's the oldest farm run by the same family in the state of Michigan. And it's old growth woods, and once you get just a couple hundred feet out of the parking lot, you are in deep woods. It can really be a special place during the day and a spooky place at night. So that will be fun. Let's see, Island Artist, an exhibition featuring Groseal artists, past and present, sponsored by the Groseal Historical Society and Groseal Alliance for the Arts. Each Saturday and Sunday in October from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the Customs House. That's at Parkway and East River. Helped set that up with my wife the other night. A few other, move that down. I want to say thank you, and I think we all agree with the work the Garden Club has done, improving the entryway off the county bridge onto the island with the decorations. But I mean, it's just beautiful. It really, really looks good coming onto the island. It's decorated for fall and Halloween. So thank you to the Garden Club. Pass on my thanks to the Garden Club and the DDA for the flowers that are still blooming on Macomb Street. And I have to pass on from the DDA my thanks to two residents on Macomb Street who've made significant improvements to their properties, Jerry Hatley and April DeCardenas. I've received, I don't know whether they come through me, but a number of compliments on how much better Macomb Street looks with the improvements in those two properties. And our building department guys are both flummoxed and amazed at the progress that has been made. So, which could easily lead me into the second part is thanks to everyone who's doing his or her part to make Groseal look better. Now, that is my segue into the other part, which is, again, the pursuit of blight, the cleaning up of the nuisances, the cleaning up of the junk. I mean, it's time. We're going to keep beating this drum. I think those who have chosen to comply have complied as much as they're going to. And we're continuing to pursue this. This board is united on that we are going to enforce our blight and nuisance ordinances, or we're going to change them. If you want an ordinance changed, contact me, contact one of your favorite member of the board, and start the process. But otherwise, we're going to enforce the ordinances as we have them. Again, make your inputs known if you think they should be changed. Which segues me into, since you're cleaning up, we Dump the Junk is coming up, and I want to thank the Greenways Open Space volunteers. Saturday and Sunday, October 19th and 20th at the DPW building, 8555 Grove, that's just down the road from here, 9 to 4 each day, so that's Saturday and Sunday. Flyers are available in the back of the room. I want to emphasize, if you have a lot of old scrap metal, metallic stuff laying around that would improve your yard's appearance if you didn't have it anymore, we've arranged for a dumpster to recycle metal. We think we can get, and I'll let Mr. Clark fill in the blanks on this, but there's a possibility we can actually generate some revenue because there is value in scrap metal. We want your scrap metal, and we especially want it out of your yards. So if I left anything out, I'm sure Mr. Clark will fill it in. It's getting dark earlier, it's staying dark later. So this is my supervisor's safety tip. As many of you know, we had a fatal accident involving a cyclist and an automobile. There's no blame to be assigned. I haven't seen the final report, but we still had a fatal. Take bicycles, take automobiles seriously, please. Remember, on the roads, the bike paths, the sidewalks, we share these pathways, we share these transportation methods, so keep your fellow resident in mind. Bicycles have a right to a lane, they are a vehicle, so you ride with traffic. You are expected to stay as far to the right as possible, riding single file. It makes it easier for the automobile to eventually pass you. If you can't cycle competitively and there's a bike path available, please use the bike path. Those of you with the spandex and the streamlined helmets who can move pretty quickly, please, if you feel safer on the road, and you probably are, cycle on the road and leave the bike paths to slower people like me and the kids on their big wheels and the moms with their baby strollers. For pedestrians, everyone actually, but for pedestrians, you can please leave the headphones behind. You're giving away your primary defense mechanism to know when a threat is approaching. If your hearing is defeated by listening to music on your headphones, leave them at home, enjoy the sounds of nature, and be aware of the sounds of threats approaching. So please, 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 leave the headphones at home. You really don't need them. You'll live longer without them. How does a person get hit by a train walking on a railroad track? Twice it's happened in the last several years, and it was headphones involved. It's just baffling. But it happened. Please, let's not have anything like that happen here. I have my pig tie on. It's October. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. 1 woman in 8 will come down with breast cancer. The number who will succumb to it's a moving target. My mom was one of them. It's important to me. Please, it should be important to you. The government's all over the page on when you should get your first mammogram. But the last number I heard from a non-government source was age 35. Take that into account and just don't try to feel lucky. 1 in 8. And my final comment, the emails, we've revised some of our computers in the township, and some of my emails go to my township email. Some go to the one I preferred that are kept from the township, some don't. So if I don't respond to an email, it's because I am in email purgatory. I will eventually get it all sorted out. When we get a new website, we will all have access to our email remotely. That was one of the design criteria. So we'll be able to respond to your inquiries more quickly, more expeditiously, and it's been a long time coming. I'm looking forward to that. And that concludes Supervisor's report. I'll turn it over to Township Manager Reardon. Anything we left out, Dale will fill us in.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have a few items I'd like to report to the board and the community this evening. It has been a pretty insane past 2 weeks. Can everyone agree with that? I don't know if it has to do with the planets, but it's just been, or it's just wonderful weather. It has been extremely busy on a daily basis, and it's not uncommon. It's the year end, if you will, at least seasonally. And we're trying to wind down some year-end projects. The bike path repairs and the bike path new construction have been working very closely with Mr. Posiask on that. And the projects are not completed. The contractor has gone to a different project site, and they're due back to final up some of the smaller items on the repairs for the bike path. one of the questions that I received was about the cracks. We did the crack sealing instead of the complete, I guess, shave and pave or grill and redo. What's the proper?
Rebuild.
Engineering. So they clean out the cracks and they put a filler in there and they leave it low. They leave it low for a couple of reasons. In the hot summer, it expands so it stays even instead of completely come out and create big bumps. And the other problem is if it sticks up and they're coming through with the snow plow or on a bobcat or the brush on the bobcat, it'll pull it right out of the cracks. So that's just part of that issue with the repair. But if there are areas that appear to be worse than others, report it to us, let us know, we'll check it out. On the new bike path construction, there's a few punch list items, but they're the same project, same contract as the intersection of Horse Mill and Park Lane, and that, I guess they poured half of that today. So that will be, the weather forecast look good, that should be finished and opened in a week or so. And with the road repairs, the concrete replacements, and the intersections, if you recall, you approved the intergovernmental agreement with Wayne County, and we expect that to be done within the next several weeks as well. And let's see, other project. Anytime now, if they didn't do it today, they will be beginning the